posted a video recently talking about the impact that attachment style can have on relationships. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about the impact of attachment in the context of parenting. Now, when a person becomes a parent, all of a sudden they have the emotional responsibility for this little person who has no verbal skills, no ways of communicating what's going on for them, and no capacity to regulate whatsoever. And as a parent, it is our responsibility to allow a child to feel safe, to feel soothed, to be seen, and to feel secure. Now, the thing with becoming a parent is it'll trigger you in ways that you never thought possible. I mean, as somebody who's had to work so hard at developing emotional regulatory skills, I really struggled to begin with. I just felt completely out of my depth because you're working so hard to try and regulate yourself despite the fact that you're exhausted like all of the time. And then all of a sudden you have the responsibility of this little one, and it can feel so overwhelming. And it's so easy to just get to a place where you're so frustrated and so angry that you just feel like you're not able. However, that being said, parenting has provided me with an opportunity to evolve my emotional regulatory skills. I mean, it was just an opportunity to recognize triggers I didn't even know that I had, and to face a lot of my childhood content from a completely different perspective. And it has completely evolved the way in which I approach myself and approach my emotions. And it has completely broadened my window of tolerance, both for my child, for other people, and for myself. Knowing your attachment issues, knowing the way that relationships trigger certain things for you is so helpful. And recognizing that as a parent, you are going to lose your shit every so often, and that's okay. But knowing how to regulate, knowing how to soothe all of those triggers is so important in being able to then address what's going on for the child and recognize that what they're doing is not about pissing you off. It's not personal. It's not that they're trying to make your day difficult. It's just that they are trying to cope with very big emotional content that they don't have the skills to deal with yet. You are the adult in that situation, and it is up to you to help age appropriately co-regulate with them so that they acquire the skills to become better able to deal with their emotions in adulthood and their teenage years. You also have to see your child for who they are, as opposed to wishing they were somewhere else or trying to condition them into the well-behaved child that you require. And the more you do this, the more you validate them, the more likely the tantrum is to just pass over. I mean, I have been known to sit down on supermarket floors with my son and work through his tantrum with him, as opposed to trying to drag him out and both of us becoming so frazzled and so irate and just ending up feeling awful as a consequence. When a child is misbehaving, or indeed when a teenager is misbehaving, that's when they need your help the most. And that's when you need to be as regulated as possible. That's when you need to be aware of your own relational content so that you can step in and be that person, even if it's just to witness their distress and for them to know that you are present and that you are available. Because sometimes, and I know my son is going through this phase at the moment, he'd be like, leave me. And so dramatic. I wonder where he gets that from. But it's about recognizing that you can't plow in there. You can't force them to be where they're not. You have to meet them where they're at. So I leave him, but I let him know that I'm available. I let him know that I'm close at hand. And then when he's ready, I begin to work on the soothing side of things. I begin to work on the emotional regulatory side of things by recognizing how he is feeling and naming it. I mean, name it to tame it. Tell them, okay, I understand that you're angry and I understand why you could be angry, but it's still about maintaining boundaries as well, because you don't want to be a walkover. And this is actually where I struggle the most, because it's remaining firm despite the fact that you are, I suppose, being consistent in meeting their emotions. It's about also recognizing that they need to understand that there are certain things that they just need to do in life, but recognizing where they're at with it, validating how they feel, and then working with them to get the required result. An important question to always ask yourself in this situation is to ask yourself, first of all, is your kid ready for regulation? But also ask yourself, am I ready? We have a tendency to assume that we can deal with our emotional agitation and our response to our child through, I suppose, cognitive processing, our top-down mannerisms such as counting to 10. But when we're hyper agitated, unfortunately, that doesn't really help us all that much. We need to come back into the body in order to get ourselves into a more secure place, a more regulated space. Sometimes deep breaths, particularly focusing on the exhale so that the exhale is longer than the inhale, can be really helpful. Placing your hand on your heart, just being with yourself, being like, okay, mama, what do you need in this moment at this time? And just really, really giving yourself the compassion that you need. Because again, if you don't recognize your own emotions, then you're not going to be that much help to your child. Also, they need to be able to observe you deal with your own emotions, self-regulate, so that it's a behavior that they see play out as opposed to being a behavior that they are told about. Getting down to their level is so important. When we are towering over our child, or indeed towering over a partner, it's not all that helpful. Also trying to inject a little bit of play into things without invalidating. So, maybe singing with your child their favorite song, or laughing a little bit, or humming. All of these things can be really helpful in just lightening things a little bit. And again, it's about reading the situation. I mean, there's no hard and fast rules here. Every situation is different, so becoming more capable of being objective, of recognizing their needs, recognizing where you're at, and then meeting all of that appropriately. And you're not going to get this right all of the time. I mean, parenting is about losing your shit. You're not meant to be perfect. But the more capable we are of knowing ourselves and validating our own emotions, the more likely we are to be able to teach our children to do the same. And that's the most important lesson that we can actually give them. If you would like to know more about attachment style, emotional regulation, or any content that I discuss on here, get in touch with me on the website at fundamentals.ie.